Thank you for joining us for our second News for You episode. My name is Taneeza Islam, and this episode will be translated into Spanish, Nepali, and Amharic. Today, we will go over questions that we've been receiving at the South Dakota Dream Coalition and briefly go over some of the executive orders President Trump has signed so far. This information is being presented by South Dakota immigration lawyers and community leaders from the South Dakota's Hispanic, Asian, and African communities. We are the trusted source of information you can rely on. First and foremost, the fear we have right now is overwhelming. Each of us is trying to figure out what to do, and none of us wants to be deported or see our loved ones deported. I cannot emphasize enough. Right now, we must turn to factual sources of information and not just believe every single thing on social media. The South Dakota Dream Coalition knows that there have been a lot of frantic posts about ICE being spotted in Sioux Falls on social media. But ICE has always been in Sioux Falls. We have a Department of Homeland Security office and agents and support centers where people regularly go to get fingerprints and interviews for U.S. citizenship. So let's take a deep breath. ICE is in Sioux Falls. What the South Dakota Dream Coalition wants to provide information on are the questions you are asking. Will there be a raid? Am I going to be arrested if I go to Walmart? Should my kids go to school? Should I go to my immigration hearings or ICE check-ins? Let us take these questions one at a time. Will there be a raid? We have next to no way of finding out if there will be a raid in Sioux Falls or anywhere in South Dakota right now. But what we do know is that we all need to be prepared. Immigration raids are successful because the employer opens the door and gives ICE permission to come inside. Everyone inside is now in jeopardy of being arrested. This is why it is absolutely critical to know that they do not have to let ICE agents into their business unless they have a valid warrant. Just a quick overview of episode 1, which goes in depth about your rights when interacting with law enforcement. A valid judicial warrant must have 3 things: a signature of a judge, the person or people ICE is looking for, or the things they are looking for, like guns or drugs, etc. Do not open the door to have this conversation. You can politely say, "I would like to see a valid warrant." You can slide it under the door or hold it up to the window so I can see it. If it is a valid warrant, bring the person ICE is looking for outside and protect everyone else inside by having the door closed. Also, in addition to do not open the door, do not sign anything unless you are 100% certain on what you are signing. If the document is in English, if the officers are speaking to you in English, and that is not your primary language, you have a right to ask for an interpreter and lawyer before you do anything. Every person in the United States has the same rights under the U.S. Constitution. Immigration status does not matter. These rights are for employers, hospitals, schools, churches, individuals, neighbors, everyone. Let's be prepared as a community to assert these rights. That is how we will best protect communities, and this is how we will minimize the harm that raids cause. Will I be arrested when I shop at Walmart? Immigration enforcement is only allowed through federal law enforcement, like ICE agents. As the law is right now, state, county, or city law enforcement is not legally allowed to enforce immigration laws in South Dakota. So, if a state trooper, county sheriff, or city officer asks you your immigration status, you have the right not to answer this question. You should politely say, "I am using my right not to answer any questions without a lawyer." Law enforcement has rules and laws that they have to follow too. If you are being arrested, law enforcement has to have a very good reason why they are arresting you. Usually, if law enforcement is looking for you to arrest you, they have to present a valid warrant, just like we talked about earlier. So law enforcement cannot just arrest anyone, anywhere for no reason. President Trump, through executive order, is saying he will allow state law enforcement, so state troopers, to arrest immigrants who have committed crimes. But the state has to agree to do this. Right now, we have no information what South Dakota will do. Some states, in fact, have said they will not work with federal law enforcement like ICE. Just because the president says he wants to do something doesn't mean that he can, and it doesn't mean the state has to listen. We will update you as soon as we know what the state of South Dakota will do. The best advice we can give you right now is do not give the law enforcement any reason to pull you over in your car, and do not commit any crimes like driving under the influence of alcohols or drugs, a DUI. Because remember, local law enforcement cannot enforce immigration laws, but they must enforce state and local laws. So if you have a broken taillight or expired car registration tags, the police have a reason to pull you over. If this happens, you have to provide 3 things: your name and license, your car registration and car insurance, and that is it. You do not have to answer any other questions, and you can say, I am using my right not to answer any other questions without a lawyer. If you get pulled over for a broken taillight, South Dakota officers do have access to a national database. If you have any immigration issues that is flagged by the immigration court or immigration agencies, the police officer may now take you to jail and call ICE to come and get you. This is why it is so important not to give officers a reason to arrest you and to follow the law exactly. Do not go over the speed limit. Do not drive a car with broken taillights. Should I send my kids to school? As the law is right now, only federal law enforcement officers like ICE can arrest people for immigration reasons. Right now, no state, county, or city law enforcement agency has agreed to help federal officers to enforce immigration laws. You should ask your school principal, school board member, and school superintendent on what their policy is to work with ICE and federal law enforcement agents to enforce immigration laws. In general, police officers arrest students in school if a really bad crime has been committed. Also, if you do not send your kids to school, there are laws that you could be breaking called truancy laws. There are different penalties for not sending your child to school, including paying a fine or being taken to court by the school. Again, if you are breaking a law, now there is an opportunity to get local law enforcement involved, and we want you to stay away from having any reason for local law enforcement to get involved. Should I go to my immigration court hearing or my ICE check-in? Here's the information you need to know to make your decision. If you do not go to any stage of your court hearings, the judge can order you deported just because you didn't show up. If you have a deportation order associated with your name, it will go into a system that local law enforcement can look at. If a local police officer pulls you over for speeding and they take a look at the system and see you have a deportation order from a judge, they can and will probably take you to jail and call ICE to come and get you. The penalty for not going to immigration court hearing is very severe. ICE check-ins are for monitoring that you are following the terms of your release. ICE check-ins are not to automatically deport you. Unless you have a final order of deportation, which can happen by missing a court hearing, ICE may exercise their right to put you into deportation. If you miss your ICE check-in, ICE can now come to find you and put you in an immigration detention center until your court hearing date, which could be years. The penalty for missing your ICE check-in is very severe. If you have an application in immigration court that has not been heard in front of a judge yet, like an asylum application, you could have a chance to stay in the United States lawfully, get a work permit, and build a life. Not going to your ICE check-in jeopardizes all of this. You have rights when you go to your ICE check-in. You have the right to remain silent beyond telling the officer if you are still at your same address, if you are working, and if you are complying with the terms of your release. If you do not remember what these terms are, you can ask the officer for a copy. You have the right to ask for an interpreter. You have the right to not sign anything without the advice of a lawyer. You can also take friends or advocates with you to your ICE check-in. A friend can remind you of your rights if officers start asking questions that they should not be. This is a lot of information, and sometimes there is not a yes or no answer. We are here to provide you factual information you need to make the right decision for you and for your family. Please know that members of the South Dakota Dream Coalition are meeting with employers and school districts to make sure they know what their rights are in protecting all of our communities. Remember, do not open the door. Do ask for a valid warrant. Do not sign anything if you are not 100% sure what it says. Do ask for an interpreter if you still do not understand what is being said. Ask for a lawyer to explain it to you. Do not give local law enforcement a reason to pull you over or arrest you like a DUI. Do follow traffic laws closely and all other laws. Let's be prepared as a community to assert these rights. That is how we will best protect communities, and this is how we will minimize harm that happens when ICE arrests and detains people. Please do share this video on your social media and with your friends and family. Tune in next week for another episode.